Pashu Pasha Vimokshanaya Madrik Prapanna Pashu Pasha Vimokshanaya Madrik Prapana Pashu Pasha Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Alayaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Lalaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Lalaya Madrik Prapana Pashu Pasha Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Layaya Samshena Sava Tanu Brin Manasi Pratita Samshena Sava Tanu Brin Manasi Pratita Samshena Sava Tanu Brin Manasi Pratita Pratyag Drishe Bhagavate Brahate Namaste Pratyag Drishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste Pratyag Drishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste Swamshena Sarva Tanu Brin Manasi Pratita Pratyag Drishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste Madrig Prapana Pashu Pasha Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Layaya Shamshena Sarva Tanu Brin Manasi Pratita Pratyag Drishe Bhagavate Priyate Namaste Madrik Prapana Pashu Pasha Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Layaya Svangshena Sarva Tanu Brin Manasi Pratita Pratyag Drishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste
Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Laya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Laya Shamshena Sava Tanu Brin Manasi Patita Shamshena Sava Tanu Brin Manasi Patita Pratyag Vishay Bhagavate Brihate Namaste Pratyag Vishay Bhagavate Brihate Namaste Madrik Prabhana Pashupascha Vimokshanaya Madrik Prabhana Pashupascha Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Alaya Bhaktāya Bhuri Karunāya Namodaya Samshena Savatana Brahmanasi Pratita
Pratyāyushe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste.
Acharya Bhagavate Bhante Namaste.
Madrik, like me, Prapana, surrendered, Pashu, an animal, Pasha, from entanglement, Vimokshanaya, unto he who releases, Muktaya, unto the Supreme, who is untouched by the contamination of material nature. Bhuri Karunaya, who are unlimitedly merciful. Nama, I offer my respectful obeisances. Alayaya, who are never inattentive or idle. And in parenthesis, for the purpose of my deliverance. Swaangshena, by your partial feature as Paramatma. Sarva, of all. Tanubrit, the living entities, embodied in material nature. Manasi, in the mind. Pratita, who are acknowledged. Pratyagdrishe, as the direct observer. And again in parentheses, of all activities. Bhagavate, unto the personality of Godhead. Brihate, who are unlimited. Nama, I offer my respectful obeisances. Te, unto you. Translation. Since an animal such as I has surrendered unto you, who are supremely liberated, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. Indeed, being extremely merciful, you incessantly try to deliver me. By your partial feature as Paramatma, you are situated in the hearts of all embodied beings. You are celebrated as direct transcendental knowledge, and you are unlimited. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, responsively please. Since an animal such as I has surrendered unto you, who are supremely liberated, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. Indeed, being extremely merciful, you incessantly try to deliver me by your partial feature as Paramatma. You are situated in the hearts of all embodied beings. You are celebrated as direct transcendental knowledge, and you are unlimited. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So another very amazing prayer coming from Gajendra, who, as we know, is actually King Indra, who's taken another birth due to his inattention in the body of an elephant. And here he's, and actually basically through the rest of the chapter, he's offering prayers glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here he's again, he's stating, as an animal, that I have surrendered to you. Certainly, you're going to release me, and this is actually the position of anyone who takes shelter of Krishna with sincerity. That ultimately Krishna will liberate that person. And by liberation, because liberation has different meanings. One of the prominent meanings of liberation is to become freed from the reactions of the modes of material nature. But this is not the type of liberation that Gajendra is talking about here. Liberation means, in this case, returning back home, back to Godhead. So when we're reading, just like we shouldn't get confused thinking that, it just means this person's going back to Godhead, because sometimes it doesn't actually mean that. It actually means they're just becoming free from the reactions of material modes of nature. And an example we could use in this case is the story of when Vidura returns after going on pilgrimage, when the Battle of Kurukshetra, before the Battle of Kurukshetra, Duryodhana insulted him. I mean, grievously insulted him. He was his uncle, he was a respectable personality, but he insulted him very, very deeply. And so he just left his bow at the door and left the house, and said, forget you guys, I've had enough of this. And then he went on pilgrimage. Then after the war, he came back to the palace, when Yudhisthira had been successful in defeating the Kauravas, and he was now the emperor. And he came back, and Dhritarashtra was living under the care of the Pandavas. And so Vidura, seeing his brother living in this condition, and he used some pretty harsh language with his brother, but anyway, when he understood that Dhritarashtra was living in this position, he wanted to extricate him from this position and put him on the spiritual path. So he came back, and Dhritarashtra was reluctant to leave. As we all tend to get into our comfort zones, and we're reluctant to take seriously the path of devotional service. But Vidura was actually pointing out to him in no uncertain terms. He was very, very clear that you are in a very, really difficult situation here. He said, you're living just like a household dog in the court of Yudhisthira, accepting the scraps of Bhima. And he knew this was a very pointed sort of jab at him, because he knew that would, because Bhima had killed all his sons. So he knew that if he said that, it would really kind of shock him. Because sometimes when a person is in ignorance, you have to shock them into wake them up, basically. And so this is what Vidura was doing to Dhritarashtra. And then it describes how he was preaching to him, and that at some point he had a realization of his situation. And it describes there how he became liberal. He went to the forest with his wife Gandhari and Vidura, and he engaged in devotional practices, and then ultimately he became liberated. But if we read the commentaries of the Acharyas, they describe that this liberation is from the bondage of karma, or that he became freed from all his reactions to his karma, because it wasn't possible for him to become liberated because of his offenses to the Pandavas. He committed such grievous offenses to the five Pandavas, tried to kill them, tried to have, in various ways, have them burnt in the house of Lak. He conspired, practically all the generals of the world would fight against them. So many different things he did, even when they were in the house of, staying at the kingdom of Virat, he also tried to, he had his sons go there and tried to expose them so they'd have to stay another 12 years in exile. He did so many things to improperly try to cheat them from their empire or from their kingdom, even though they were the rightful kings, and he refused to accept that. He wanted his sons to be the kings because he was attached to the comforts that the kingdom would provide. But it's interesting that we see that when, and this helps us to understand the nature of Yudhisthira, that when the Pandavas had won the battle of Kurukshetra, and then when the Pandavas had won the battle of Kurukshetra and Yudhisthira was installed on the throne, he actually said to Dhritarashtra, please rule the kingdom. He wasn't attached to the kingdom at all. But Dhritarashtra said to him, no, you're the rightful king, you should rule. Because he was a bit ashamed also of what he'd done. So Dhritarashtra told him that he should rule the kingdom. And so Yudhishthira, he reluctantly did, but he did because it was his duty to do, whereas he felt very, very wretched because all these millions of people had died as a result of him, trying to establish himself as the king. I'll read Srila Prabhupada's purport. The words Brihate Namaste have been explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Brihat Sri Krishnaya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Krishna. There are many tattvas, such as Vishnu tattvas, Jiva tattva, and Shakti tattva. But above everything is the Vishnu tattva, which is all-pervading. This all-pervading feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 10:42, wherein the Lord says, Atava bahunaitena kingatena tavarjuna vishtabhyaham vidam krishnam ekangshena stito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Thus, Krishna says that the entire material world is maintained by his partial representation as Paramatma. This gives you an idea of the nature of Krishna. Paramatma is just a partial representation. And by this partial representation, he maintains this entire universe. The Lord enters every universe as Garbhadakshayi Vishnu and then expands himself as Chiradakshayi Vishnu to enter the hearts of all the living entities and even enter the atoms. Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastan. Every universe is full of atoms, and the Lord is not only within the universe but also within the atoms. Thus, within every atom, the Supreme Lord exists in his Vishnu feature as Paramatma. But all the Vishnu tattvas emanate from Krishna, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.2, Aham Adi Hir Devanam. Krishna is the Adi, or beginning, of the Devas of this material world, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Therefore, he is described here as Bhagavate Brihate. Everyone is Bhagavan. Everyone possesses opulence. But Krishna is Brihan Bhagavan, the possessor of unlimited, Brihan means like great, the possessor of unlimited opulence. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the origin of everyone. Aham Sarasya Prabhava. Even Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara come from Krishna. Mata Paratam Nanyat Kinchirasti Dhananjaya. There is no personality superior to Krishna. Therefore, this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Bhagavate Brihate means unto Krishna. In this material world, everyone is a pashu, an animal, because of the bodily conception of life. Yashatma buddhi kunape tridatuke, sadi karatradishu boma ijadi, yatite buddhi salade nakahichid, janeshu avigeshu saeva gokara. A human being who identifies the body made of three elements as the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of his birth to be worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to bathe rather than to meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be understood to be like a cow or an ass. Bhagavatam 10:84-13. Practically everyone, therefore, is a pashu, an animal, and everyone is attacked by the crocodile of material existence. Not only the king of the elephants, but every one of us is being attacked by the crocodile and is suffering the consequences. Only Krishna can deliver us from material existence. Indeed, he is always trying to deliver us. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridideshi Arjuna Tishtiti. He is within our hearts and is not at all inattentive. His only aim is to deliver us from material life. It is not that he becomes attentive to us only when we offer prayers to him. Even before we offer our prayers, he incessantly tries to deliver us. He is never lazy in regard to our deliverance. Therefore, this verse says, Buri Karunaya Namo Layaya. It is the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord that he always tries to bring us back home, back to Godhead. God is liberated, and he tries to make us liberated. But although he is constantly trying, we refuse to accept his instructions. Savadamam parityaja mamikam saranam braja. Nonetheless, he has not become angry. Therefore, he is described here as Bhuri Karunaya, unlimitedly merciful in delivering us from the miserable material condition of life and taking us back home, back to Godhead. So, yeah, very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada, as always. This one particularly is outstanding. And there's many important points that Prabhupada is commenting on here, following along with the verse. And we see here in the beginning, he talks about the Lord's feature is the Paramatma, quoting this verse, Atava Bahunaita Ina Kim, what is it? Gatena Tavajuna, that he's pervading, this entire universe, and he's actually, maintaining the entire universe just by a fragment of his energy. And we see it's explained in the scriptures how Krishna expands. His first expansion is Baladev, at least for the purpose of creation and maintenance. His first expansion is Baladev, because also Radharani is considered to be his first expansion as well, but that's his first expansion for the purpose of enjoying sweet pastimes. So they have different functions, but both are considered to be the first expansion. But in the sense of creation, the first expansion is Baladev, and then from Baladev expands Sankarshan, and actually simultaneously Krishna expands as Vasudeva, and Vasudeva expands as Sankarshan. It's a little bit hard to understand in a linear sense because it's not linear. None of this sort of stuff is really linear. And so then Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Prajumna, Aniruddha. Right? So this is the first Chatavyuha. Then from that Sankarshan comes Mahashankarsan. From that comes another Chatavyuha. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Prajumna, Aniruddha. And then from the Sankarshan there, I think it's the Sankarshan, comes the Purushavatars. Means Karanadakshay Vishnu, Kavadakshay Vishnu, and Chiradakshay Vishnu. So Karanadakshay Vishnu, he lays down on the Karana, or the causal ocean. Karana means causal, is Sava Karana Karanam. So he lies down on the causal ocean, and while he's lying on the causal ocean, so many universes, he's breathing in and out. And this gives you an idea of how vast this Karanadakshay Vishnu is. He's lying down on this causal ocean, on Anantashesh, the serpent bed. And as he's breathing out while he's sleeping, all the universes are coming out from the pores of his body. Just like little gold, it's described like little golden droplets, and they coagulate together like threads. And they just float, and they settle down on the causal ocean. And as they're expanding, as they're expanding out of his body, then the Ichcha Shakti and the Kriya Shakti, they enter into, along with all the jivas, enter into these universes. And also, they're also at the same time taking on the material elements, from the pradhan, and they expand as they take on all these elements. And then the Lord enters into these universes as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And then Garbhodakshay Vishnu, he's in the universe, and it's described how the universe is getting hot, and so he starts to sweat. And it's not like our sweat. Our sweat tends to be a bit smelly, but his sweat's very, very fragrant. Yeah. And then he sweats so much that he half fills this egg with sweat. So you can imagine how much sweat's coming out. It's like huge. Just like this one universe, and this universe we're in is one of the smaller universes, because our Brahma only has 4 heads. Some of the universes, the Brahmas have millions or billions of heads. It could be something far out to sea, wouldn't it? I mean, even a person with 4 heads is pretty amazing, but someone with billions of heads, I can't conceive of, I really can't conceive of it, but anyhow, it's described there in the scriptures. So, we accept that to be the case. Then he sweats, and his sweat half fills this universal globe, and then he manifests from his body an antashesh, and then he lies down on an antashesh. And then while he's lying down, it's described how all the desire of the living entities is kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? It's sort of they come together, coalesce into one kind of desire, and they push through his navel as the stem of a lotus flower. These desires of the jivas. It's described how the point of that lotus stem, that's the desire of the jivas, because it has to be very, very strong to pierce through the navel of the Lord. And it pierces through the navel of the Lord, and it grows up. The lotus manifests, and Lord Brahma appears on the lotus, and then he starts to meditate upon how to create the universe. And then he expands the universe from his body, but obviously all the ingredients are provided for him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then all the jivas, he populates the universe through the different agencies, but ultimately all the jivas have been there inside the body of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, so all the jivas expand, and as Chiradakshayi Vishnu, he enters into all the hearts of the jivas, but it's described here also into all the atoms. And so we can see how this Paramatma, he's pervading the entire universe. And this is just an expansion, a partial expansion of, as you can see, from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's not even Krishna directly himself. He's just, a somewhat removed expansion of Krishna. Yet he's so powerful that he maintains the entire universe. So this is what Krishna explains also at the end of the 10th chapter of the Gita. And we see here in this universe how people are becoming enamored by the Devatas and things like that. But they're actually so insignificant in comparison to Krishna. And this is why it's important for us to understand this information, because we can see how powerful Krishna is and how insignificant personalities like Brahma, Shiva, and these other persons, how insignificant they are in comparison to Krishna, because they can't do this. And it's not even Krishna directly who's doing this. It's as I said, it's a somewhat removed partial expansion of Krishna that's doing this. And so, this is why the information in the 10th chapter of the Gita is very important for us, because it helps us to understand how powerful Krishna is. And the last verse, he says, but what use is there of all this detailed knowledge? Because by a single fragment of myself, not even a complete part, but a single fragment of myself, I pervade and maintain this entire universe. And this universe is so vast, and it's only one of many, many millions of universes, billions of unlimited billions of universes. And by his separated expansion, he's maintaining this entire universe. And then and this is the point that Krishna repeatedly makes in the Bhagavad Gita, and we see that Gajendra is making the same point here, is there is no one who is superior to Krishna. He is saying here he's celebrated as direct transcendental knowledge and unlimited. There's no one in this universe who can claim, in existence, not just this universe, but there's no one apart from Krishna who can claim to be unlimited. Actually, there's Albert Einstein is reported as saying there are two things that are unlimited: the universe and human stupidity. And they said, but I'm unsure about the universe. So it helps us to understand, he thought the human stupidity was pretty sort of vast. And that's the fact, because we get all these living entities in this world who are foolishly thinking that they've become God, or thinking that they're unlimited, or they're able to do anything, because of their stupidity. But the reality is that only Krishna is unlimited. No one else is unlimited, or his expansions, of course. But Krishna is unlimited. Everyone else is limited. But because of our foolishness, we become bewildered by the material modes of nature, and we're actually thinking we're a competitor to God. And even we see certain religions in their philosophy, they portray different individuals as being competitors to God. But who can compete with God? No one can even come close to competing with God, because no one in this universe is unlimited. No one in this universe has even a fragment of the capacity of God. You know, as Krishna is saying in that verse, this Prabhupada's quoting here, from the 10th chapter, that by a single fragment of myself, I pervade this entire universe. Who can do that? Who else in creation, even the most powerful of the Devatas, Lord Brahma, cannot do that. Even someone like Yamaraj cannot do that. Yamaraj is quite powerful because he's empowered by Krishna to understand the activities of all the different jivas. It's only by the Paramatma that he's able to understand that. With his own independent capacity, he can't do that. But the thing is, Yamaraj is smart. He knows that. He knows that, and he explains this. We see this in the, where is it? Is it the 6th canto, I think? Where the Yamadutas come for a jar and he explains to them. He explains to the Yamadutas that actually, no, it's only by Krishna's, because the Yamadutas are thinking that Yamaraj is supreme, because their experience has been, because they're quite tamasic individuals, but they have some knowledge. And, their experiences, they've seen that all these sinful living entities are actually under the control of Yamaraj, and he's a very powerful personality. And when people have committed sins at the end of this life, the Yamadutas capture them and they take them to the hellish planets to endure so many, horrific situations. And so they're thinking that Yamaraj is the supreme personality of Godhead, or the supreme living entity in creation. And then when they meet the Yamadutas, or the Vishnudutas, they're quite shocked because the Vishnudutas stop them from taking Ajamil's soul. Or, Ajamil, the personality. It's not like the soul separate from the personality. And so they're quite shocked that someone could forbid them from doing that. So they went and they asked Yamaraj, how did this happen? And Yamaraj explained, just as you serve me, I also have to serve. And I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so he explains this to them. And so even the greatest controllers in this universe, they bow down to Krishna. And they accept that Krishna is supreme. And this is, a point that's repeatedly indicated in descriptions such as this. So many wonderful prayers, Brahma's prayers for creative energy, when Kadama Muni is praying to Kapila Dev, when Bhishma is praying to Krishna, there's so many, when Kunti's praying, there's so many amazing prayers in the Bhagavatam that are trying to educate us on the nature of Krishna. He is beyond anything we can grasp in this material world. There's nothing in this material world we can compare that compares to Krishna. And he's not affected by anything of this world, whereas we on the contrary, everything in this material world affects us if we don't take shelter of Krishna. We're affected by the modes of nature, we're affected by the weather, we're affected by so many different things. But if we take shelter of Krishna, then as he describes in the 7th chapter, he says, Devisha Gunamaya Mamaya Dharataya, Mamaya Vijay Prapadyante, Mayami Tamtanantite. That this divine energy mind consisting of 3 modes of material nature is very difficult to overcome, but one who surrenders unto me can easily cross beyond it. And there's another verse in the Bhagavatam, I think it's the 14th chapter, the 10th canto, Tate nukam pam su samikshavano bunjane vamrikapagava. Bhagavapu vibhidada namaste jiveta yo. No, that's a different verse. How does the verse go? Samishvitiye padava pravam mahatpadam punyo yashamarane bhavamburi vatsaparam padam yabhibidam natesham. It describes how, it's a very, very wonderful verse, describes how this material world is like a vast ocean. And you can imagine, like, if you're flying across the Pacific Ocean is vast. To fly from Sydney to Los Angeles takes 17 hours, and there's only one island in the middle of it, basically Hawaii. It's not more towards the US. But you can imagine that if you were dropped in the middle of that ocean, what would be the chance of you reaching land? Seriously. You'd drown if you didn't get eaten by sharks. You'd drown because the ocean is just so vast. There's no possibility we could swim. But this verse describes that person who takes shelter, murari, of the enemy of the Muradima, Murari, then this vast ocean shrinks to no more than the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf. And just as we see, it's like when you go to the pasturing grounds in Vrindavan, you can see the calves. They walk, where I live in Australia, also we have every year we have a number of calves born. You can see the calves in the field, especially when it's muddy. They leave like a little footprint like that. It's, a little bit more than an inch across, maybe 2 inches across. Who can't cross over that? Who can't step over that little impression? And so that's what happens. It's like this is, we cannot by our own capacity overcome this ocean of the material world. It's just not possible. There's no way we can do it. But it's only when we take shelter of Krishna that this vast ocean of material nature shrinks to something as insignificant as the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf. And anyone can easily cross over this by the mercy of Krishna. And this is what we need to understand. It's only by the mercy of Krishna that I'm able to understand anything about this process of Krishna consciousness. It's only by the mercy of Krishna that I'm able to overcome the ravages, as Mukunda Goswami calls them, the ravages of age, the ravages of time. It's only by Krishna's mercy. And the point that's being made here, and it really struck me last night when I read this purport, I thought, the Bhagavatam's speaking to me here. It's really speaking to me. It's like, because there's one word, what is it? What's the word? Where is it? Alayaya. It's a really interesting word, where it means, who are never inattentive or idle for the purpose of my deliverance. And this is the nature of Krishna. He's always acting to try to get us to give up our attachment to this material world, to give up our attachment to so many foolish and useless things. We're always trying to as it mentions the Bhagavatam, to exploit the resources of material, in the Gita, to exploit the resources of material nature. We're always endeavoring to exploit this, thinking that I will enjoy, thinking that I'll become more prominent, more powerful. I'm increasing my position in this material world just by trying to exploit this material nature. So foolishly, we're trying to be the controllers and enjoyers in this material world. But Krishna, out of his immense compassion upon the conditional living entities, understanding this is not our natural position. This is not where we belong. This is not who we are. But because of our foolishness, we're thinking that this body, this is me. This world is mine to enjoy, mine to control. Because an element of enjoyment is control, trying to be the controller of the material world. It's not mine. It actually belongs to Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govinda Sarva Karuna Karana. That Krishna, he is the Parama, he's the Parama Ishvara, he's the supreme controller. There's no one who's superior to him. Is Satchidananda Vigraha. He has a form which is full of bliss, truth, and eternality. You look at our forms. It's like, just like I was saying, I don't know how it happened. I just started bleeding this morning from my leg. There's no getting blood all over my dhoti. I had to wash it out several times. And then last night I couldn't sleep. It was like I'm lying in the bed midnight, looking at the ceiling, like, what's going on? There's no bliss in that. So it's definitely, this material body is not a place of enjoyment. And it's not a place you can enjoy because it's ultimately, it's subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. None of those things are enjoyable. Yeah? Does anyone here remember being born? I remember I was present when my daughter was born. I tell you, I wouldn't want to go through that again. But because we're foolish, we will go through it again if we don't give up this foolishness. And it's, it's a very, because like the head has got, I think, here and here, that there's holes, and like you find that the skull is broken into sections. So what happens is when the baby comes out of the womb or the uterus, the head is compressed. These segments of the skull, they kind of move in on each other like that, and so the brain gets compressed. It must be a very painful situation to have your whole body compressed and coming out of this hole, and also for the woman, very, very painful situation. And so birth, like the materialists, they tend to glorify birth as being they have such a romantic idea of what birth is about. But it's not at all romantic. It's a very, very difficult situation. It's an amazing situation, how Krishna creates life like that. That's quite extraordinary. That part of it's quite extraordinary, but the actual experience for the living entity is very, very painful. And then as we grow, we suffer from various injuries, we suffer from various diseases, not at all relishable. Then we get old, and anyone who's beyond 60 can tell you, getting old is not a lot of fun. You get various aches and pains in the body, you get various difficulties, your digestion goes down, your hearing goes down, your eyesight goes down. Everything starts to fall apart. No fun in that. Then ultimately it comes to the point of death. And anyone who can remember death will testify that it's definitely not an enjoyable experience. So this is the nature of the material world. And Krishna, seeing the living entity, excuse me, with all the difficulties the living entity is going through, and seeing that the living entity in this material world, trying to be the control and joy, is actually suffering the burning threefold miseries. Krishna sees this. Krishna knows this, and he knows that this is not the living entity's natural blissful position. So therefore, out of compassion upon all of us, he's as Prabhupada says here, he's not lazy. He's actively working 24/7 to create the environment where we actually turn to him and we surrender to him. And this is what hit me, is Krishna's not lazy, but I am. I'm lazy. Krishna's constantly acting, to try to, he's given me so much facility. The association of wonderful Vaishnavas, the wonderful temple here to come take darshan of the Lord, so many wonderful facilities, the scriptures, Krishna, Bhagavat Prasad. I mean, so many different facilities he's giving us, devotional service. He's giving us all these different facilities so that we can come to Krishna consciousness, but we waste our time on useless activities. We're lazy. We don't actually, take to the practice of Krishna consciousness with the necessary enthusiasm. We tend to, get distracted by things, and a little bit like, the story of the hare and the tortoise. You know that story? No? So there's a race, and there was a hare between the hare and the tortoise. And the hare, big false ego, he's thinking, I'm going to run ahead and I'm going to win this. No problems. The tortoise, I think God, it'll take him forever to get there, And so the hare, he runs ahead. You see, the tortoise is going to take days, so I'll just have a bit of a snooze. And so he pulls over, he has a snooze, and he sleeps much longer than he thought he was going to sleep. Meanwhile, the tortoise, he's focused on the goal, steady determination. He just slowly walks past, and he's looking at the hare as he's walking past, and he wins the race. Because he doesn't get distracted. He keeps his mind focused on the goal. And so, at least I can say for myself, very much like that. It's like, no, I've got plenty of time, Krishna's merciful, I'll get there. I can go over here, this deviation, go off this deviation. But ultimately, we need to focus on the goal. We need to be determined if we really want to get back to Godhead, if we really want to return back to the spiritual world. We have to really focus ourselves to achieve the goal of Krishna consciousness. So this is quite a wonderful purport, and really helping us to understand the position of Krishna in terms of the creation, in terms of him being supreme and superior to, vastly superior to any other living. You cannot actually compare, we were discussing the other day about the universe and the layers of the universe. Atoksha mentioned it's like if you take an orb that's an inch across and you compare it to the size of the whole planet, that's like the comparison. But Krishna's even greater than that, because he's unlimited. There's nothing you can compare to him. Yet, he's so compassionate that he's doing everything he possibly can. And not just once, but constantly, continuously, he's doing everything he possibly can to attract us back to Godhead. This is the compassionate and merciful nature of Krishna. So we need to wake up to the fact that Krishna is actively working to try to bring us back to the spiritual world. And take it seriously. And take this process of Krishna consciousness seriously. Okay, thank you. Any questions at all? Yes, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you. You say, I don't know if you know this, I don't know if it says it anywhere, but it looks like Vijendra is, he says, set you or release me from this dangerous position. Is he saying that because he can see the Lord coming now? It seems like he's quite certain now he's going to get released. So I just wondered, is that during the course of making these prayers, the Lord's appeared now, and you can see when he's saying, certainly you'll release me.
Yeah, because it's just like, to give like a mundane example, say you're being harassed by a bully, right? And a policeman comes up. You know what's going to happen. The policeman's going to arrest the bully. Right? You just know that because it's what the police do. So it's the same here. Krishna's appeared. He knows because in his past life he was a great devotee, and he's remembering these prayers from his past life. He's offering prayers to Krishna. He knows that this is what Krishna will do, because that's the nature of Krishna. He's very merciful to the devotees. But he's also very merciful to the non-devotees, because he cuts the head off the crocodile, which also for the crocodile means liberation. That's the nature of Krishna. He's a papa vidham. He's free from anything, any sinful reaction, sinful desire, and he brings all good. So he knows that this is what's going to happen because of the merciful nature of Krishna.
Also, he mentions there is an animal, and there's quite a few places where Prabhupada says that animals cannot understand. And in this case, this is an animal who's able to be called back. But then it's obviously Krishna appears in all species of life.
Yeah, that's the mind-blowing point, that he appears is even an ant incarnation of Krishna and an amoeba incarnation of Krishna. Yeah. But ultimately, like if one's identifying with animal consciousness, then yes, you cannot practice spiritual life. But we see there's so many instances of living entities, because ultimately the jiva, jivera swarupa hoy Krishna nityadas, the jiva is an eternal servant of Krishna. Every living entity is, regardless of the body they're in. But usually when they're in an animal body, they're so covered by ignorance is they're not aware. Or like someone in a tree body, they're not aware of their eternal nature, their permanent nature as a servant of Krishna. So, they're covered by the modes of nature. But when they are in a situation where that covering is removed, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they leave the animal body, but when this covering of ignorance is removed, just like we see with the story of Bharat Maharaj when he was in the body of a deer. Even though he had a body of ignorance, he was still aware of his actual nature. So he was able to offer prayers to Krishna. He was able to overcome the influence of that body. And we see also in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, when Shivananda Sain, he had that dog, that dog that was following the Prakram party, and then when because Shivananda Sain, he was caught up with the boat people, paying bribes and stuff like that to get the party through to Orissa. He was unable to feed the dog because he used to feed the dog every evening, and so he couldn't feed the dog. And it's quite an extraordinary story because when he went to Jagannath Puri, he saw the dog there, and Lord Chaitanya was throwing him. He was eating coconut pulp and throwing the scraps to the dog, and he was calling out to the dog, "Chant Hare, chant Krishna," and the dog was chanting Hare Krishna. So we can see how, in certain circumstances, a living entity who's imprisoned in the body of a lower living entity can break through that situation and practice Krishna consciousness. But also we see that Shivananda Sain, he was such an elevated soul that when he saw the dog, he thought he'd offended the dog. And so he offered obeisances to the dog because, my dear dog, I offended you, I forgot to feed you. I didn't feed you because of my inadequacies. He didn't blame the boatman or anything like that. He just took it upon himself and said, that I've offended you. So he obviously was a transcendental personality. He was seeing all living entities on the platform of self, not on the platform of the body. So this is, a good lesson for us also, is to try to see all living entities actually as spirit souls, not as the body. So even though a living entity is in a dog body or some sort of animal body, there's still jiva, there's still eternal service of Krishna. And what can I do to bring them to the point of realizing that? And likely sitting down and speaking Bhagavad Gita to them is not going to do it. But maybe if we give them prasad, it's going to help them, elevate their consciousness. And therefore you'll see on festivals like Govardhan Puja that all living entities were given prasad, not just the human beings. And Prabhupada talks about that in the Krishna book, how that the Vaishnavas are merciful to all living entities. Because ultimately, all living entities, even the plants, birds, trees, animals, they're all servants of Krishna. But because of the body, because of their identification with material nature, they've forgotten their intrinsic nature as servants of Krishna. Okay, anything else? Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful pleasure to spend time here with you all. And as always, I'm looking forward to the next opportunity I get to come. I'm not sure when that'll be. Probably June, July, August next year, something like that. Might be a bit warmer then. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.